everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Roadside with Rigg. Now, what is this show, you might be asking yourself? Well, tune in and find out, but I'll give you a little taste. First and foremost, I want to give a special shout out to the one and only legendary 10-man and the Dr. Quack podcast. Both of you have inspired me to create this show and, well, give an insider's point of view and the insider's look to the everyday life of the everyday working trucker. With that being said, that gave you a little bit of information of what this show is about. It's just kind of you see Rigg on the promo screens all the time, and you see how I am on the promo world. But in reality, I am a legit truck driver, and that's what I do for a living. And there's a lot that I understand that for the civilian world, as we call them, don't understand or don't realize about the trucking world. So, sit back, relax, hopefully you learn something, pay attention, and enjoy. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, I swear, these fuel prices are getting ridiculous. $348 for 63 gallons of diesel. I swear. No, I'm not lying. Look. $348 here in Florida for 63 gallons of diesel. Now, I understand that diesel's a little bit more expensive, but I say this to make a point. A lot of people sit there and they're quick to judge a truck driver. Oh, you make all this money, you shouldn't have to worry about nothing. However, I want to point out a few facts you might not know. See, you have company drivers like myself, which doesn't really have a reason to bitch about the fuel because we don't have to pay for it. We have a company fuel card, and the company pays for it. They control whether we can fuel in certain places, whether we can't. There ain't a whole lot of boundaries there. However, the ones that do tend to make more money is called owner ops. That's short for owner operators. And for those of you who need a little bit more of an elaboration, that means they own their own 18-wheeler personally themselves. A lot of them either own their own truck and rent out the trailers to the companies, or to make an even better profit, they own the truck and the trailer. But here's the few catches there. Whereas they may make twice the amount of money that us company drivers make, what people don't want to see and don't want to understand and realize is whereas company drivers, if our truck breaks down, company pays for it. We need any type of fuel, oil, liquids, coolant, antifreeze, didn't matter, company pays for it. We got brakes to go out on the truck or the trailer, company pays for it. Owner operators, on the other hand, anything and everything to do with that truck, and if they own the trailer, then to do with that trailer as well, comes out of their own personal pocket. Now, I don't know about y'all, but the last time I checked, mechanics ain't cheap. And most of y'all only know about the regular four-wheeler, as we call them, but you'll hear more about that later on. Mechanics. A diesel mechanic, you're looking at spending 2 to 3 times that amount. So whereas we may make a lot of money out here, the cost of the expenses is what really gets us and really tears into our pocket. Even as company drivers, you know, these truck stops know that they got us arm and leg. Now, I'm not taking away from them, you know, they're good service for us. But they know that we're limited only to get into certain places. So therefore, what do they get the right to do? They jack up in prices about twice the amount of what any other store would do, or any other gas station would do, or any other Walmart would do. And you know, again, I can't blame them. It's called supply and demand. Something you should have learned about in school, but if you got any questions about it and how it works, message me and leave a comment down below, and I'll be sure to take into consideration, maybe make another video explaining that. Because I want to explain basically the way of the world out here for a truck driver for y'all. I want y'all to understand the in-depth, first-hand personal look, you know, and hopefully get a little bit of knowledge into y'all about it not being the cakewalk job that everybody thinks. Now, with all of that being said, it was about gas prices is what I started this is. Now, as I get ready to do the last part before taking off, which is planning my route, I'm sitting here and I'm looking, and I thought I was going to be late because I'm about 6.5 hours away from my delivery, and I'm down here in Florida, which is the Eastern time zone. But that is why you got an atlas. As you sit there and you look on this atlas, where I deliver to, it's in the panhandle right here. Let's see if y'all can see that a little better. That's the panhandle of Florida, the top half of it. What a lot of people don't know is that the panhandle of Florida runs underneath Alabama and Georgia. Now, there's 2 time zones right there. You got the biggest time zone of the U.S., inter-U.S. 48, which is the Central Time Zone. And that covers majority of the inner 48 states. And then you got the Eastern Time Zone, which is all the Northeast, New York, all that, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, the Virginias, everything on the East Coast pretty much. Parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. But Florida, on the other hand, though majority of the state is in Eastern Time Zone, there's a small part about this wide of the panhandle of Florida that is in Central Time Zone. Therefore, making it to where I'm not going to be late for my delivery, because actually coming from Eastern time zone to Central time zone, I gain an hour. I go back an hour, if you will. Now, let's talk on time zones for a minute. Like I said, I want to educate y'all just a little bit. You've got four time zones of the inner 48. We just discussed two of them. Eastern time zone, which is kind of self-explanatory, but I gave y'all a layout. The Central time zone, which I'm not lying to y'all, is vast majority of the inner 48 United States. And then you got Mountain time zone. Mountain time zones like your Colorados, your Nevadas, your Dakotas, and things like that. You know, so what? Take that back. Dakotas are Central time zone. It's Wyoming and Utah and all that. It's Mountain time zone. It's a little bit, little bit bigger than Pacific time zone, but it's not nowhere near the size of Central. And then you got Pacific time zone. And Pacific time zone is the smallest time zone of the inner 48. It makes up of Washington, Oregon, and California. Double check, make sure y'all ain't telling y'all wrong, but I'm almost certain that is the only 3 states of the inner 48. Well, I take it back. Nevada and parts of Idaho are all in the Pacific time zone. Why is it the Pacific time zone? Well, that's kind of self-explanatory. So we're on California, on the West Coast. Why is it called Pacific instead of Eastern, or instead of Western, since we got Eastern on the other side? Because the Pacific Ocean is over there. So therefore it made self-explanatory, it made perfect sense, so it wasn't confusion on East and West for the people who can't know the direction of East and West. Which, keep in mind, if you're ever confused on that, California is West, New York is East. That's the best way I can tell you. California's West, Florida's East. You keep that in mind, you will never get East and West mixed up again. Trust me, I don't know about all the rest of you, but I had a little bit of trouble with that growing up. With all that being said, everybody usually runs on Central and Eastern. Even here in Heart and Soul, we run on Central and Eastern, because vast of our promo artists are in the Central and Eastern time. We have a few in the Mountain time zone, but for the vast majority, it's Central and Eastern time. The point that I'm making is I want to teach y'all about the time zones a little bit, because though we learned it in school, some of us get old and our brain gets to the point we forget a little bit. But with that being said, Eastern time zone is the one to the far right, makes up the Eastern states, like I said earlier. But I'm going to give you the scale based off of the Central time zone, because Central is vast majority. So right now, it is 9:51 a.m. in the Central time zone. I'm still in the Eastern time zone, which means you go ahead an hour, which is 10:51 a.m. in the morning, Eastern time zone. Yeah, Eastern Standard Time Zone, Central Time Zone. That's 1 hour difference. Eastern goes ahead, 1 hour ahead of Central Time Zone. And then you go to Mountain Time Zone. Mountain Time Zone is 1 hour behind Central Time Zone. So if it's 9:51 a.m. in Central Time Zone, then in Mountain Time, it is 8:51. And then if you, not to get too confused, but that also makes it 2 hours behind Eastern Time Zone. Which, again, okay, if you're in the East Time Zone, if you're in the East Coast, and it's 10:52 a.m. But you want to figure out what time it is where your mama lives in Colorado, so you don't call and wake her up. All you do is subtract 2 hours. But let's go even broader spectrum. Let's talk about the last one, which is the Pacific Coast. The Pacific Time Zone is 2 hours behind the Central Time Zone. It's real simple, actually. It's all broke up into 1 hour intervals. But I can understand how it gets a little bit confusing. Trust me, I've done it before. Back when I first started out here driving, I'd be calling people thinking that it's 8 o'clock where they're at and it's 6 o'clock where they're at. And I feel bad, but they understood. Pacific Time Zone Okay, you got 10:53 a.m. in the Central Time, or 9:53 a.m. in the Central Time Zone right now. 10:53 in the Eastern Time Zone. If you're in the East Coast and you want to know what your buddy in California, if he's awake or not, subtract 3 hours. It would be 7:53 a.m. over there. If you want to know, if you're in the Central Time Zone and you want to know, you subtract 2 hours, making it again 7:53, because it would be 9:53 in the Central Time Zone. I'm not trying to, give y'all too much of a back to school type deal, but if you ever travel, or say that you have a relative that is a truck driver, ask them what time zone they're in. That way you know not to call and wake them up, or something like that. It's educational for those purposes. It ties in with the trucking life that I was telling you about. Because I'm going to tell you, when I just went to bed at midnight on the Pacific Coast time, okay, that makes it 3 a.m. on the East Coast. And let's see, I'll use a perfect example. My girl lives in Florida, which is the East Coast time. She lives in the eastern coast time of Florida. It's 3 a.m. where she's at when I go to bed at midnight, if I'm over there on the Pacific. If she didn't discuss it with me beforehand, and we didn't communicate and know that I'm in that time zone, she gonna wake up at 7 a.m. thinking that it's, early enough to be able to call me, and I might not be a happy camper because it's gonna be 4 a.m. where I'm at. So if you have relatives, loved ones, fiancés, husbands, wives, sisters, mothers, daughters, brothers, whatever the case, that drives truck for a living or travels for a living at all, this time zone knowledge is very important. And all it takes is simple 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, from West Coast, which is the Pacific time zone, to East Coast, it's only 4 hours difference. Depending on which time zone you're in, Pacific, Mountain, Central, or Eastern, depends on what you subtract and what you add. It's very simple, really. But worst comes to worst, any and every map of the United States, atlas, anything, if you look real close, usually it's red dotted lines, and it'll have each time zone labeled. I don't know how well y'all be able to see it. I'll give you an example. If you can see it real well. Now, as you can see, you got the clock right there. 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 That clock right there stands for Pacific time zone. Now, not every map is going to give you the clocks and show you the hour difference, but if you notice, it's what they're doing. They show you what time on the clock it is. But if you look real close, I can't really see it a whole lot, because there's a lot of red lines here. Hold on. You see dotted lines there. Now I understand that's up in Canada, but the time zone goes the same for up there too. And it goes on down, goes on down. That's the separation of your time zones. And it'll even tell you right there, Central time zone, Pacific time zone. So worst comes to worst and you can't remember, get a map. I understand with today's technology, GPS and cell phones and everything else, and you can even Google it, yeah, sure. But what if you're in a dead zone? Because you get out there to the mountain time zone and the Pacific time zone, a lot of times you run into that issue. Because you don't have nothing but vast desert. And they don't always have signal. Trust me, I know. No matter which company you're with, because I've been out here with every company besides Verizon. Always keep a map. No matter what. If you're traveling anywhere, always keep a map. Because electronics are due to fail any day. You never know. All it takes is a simple break in the signal, and it can mess up your entire electronic GPS, phone, anything. And you'll be completely stranded and lost and freaking out because you ain't got signal on your phone to call nobody, nothing like that. A map or an atlas would be my recommendation, but they're a little bit more expensive. Just a standard USA map would help. It's always useful to have, and they do still exist. You can find them. Each one of the rest areas, which I'll teach that in another lesson, of these truck stops, or each state has a rest area. Every one of them's got a map of that state in it. You go to these truck stops, you've got atlases, you've got USA maps. Whatever state that truck stop's in, usually got that state's map. So if you're not traveling across all of the states and you just want one for that state, then that's fine. But think about it, if you start traveling all across the state, wouldn't that be a lot of maps to keep whenever you can just get an atlas or a regular USA map and then you got it all right there together? Work smarter, not harder. But with all that being said, it is due time that I need to get on the road. What's so special about truck drivers? We'll get over here where there ain't a whole lot of noise, hopefully. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go to the other side. They got a reefer unit right there. Yeah, there's a motor on the trailer to keep it cold. That being said, especially when it comes to flatbedders, people wonder, oh man, all he does is drive a truck all day. Things like that. But they don't realize the hard work that goes into it. Not only the dunnage, straps, chains and binders, coil wrecks, pipe wrecks. It's all a lot of stuff. Look at that nice new catwalk. I got that the other day. It looked nice, don't it? But then you got them fun sun guns, tarps. I'm gonna give you an idea how big these tarps are. Walk on down here. Of course, you know, brand new trailer, brand new straps. Got the dunnage right there. I got lucky with this trailer. That's a flap that's 8 foot long. It goes over the front and over the back of a load if you use 2 tarps. Luckily with this load, I got away with just doing 1. But then, got bungeed all together and everything else, make it all nice and secure. Now that might look very long to y'all, but what you don't see, and what you don't realize, and I'll show you down here at the end, 24 foot long, this load is. See how much inch space is on the trailer, and trust me, it ain't always like that, usually it's the front to back. This load is 24 foot long. With that 8 foot drop, that's the only empty spot I got. So these tarps are, if I had to guess, about 25 or about 28, 30 foot long. I don't know the exact measurements. Hate me if you want to. I'm gonna see how well. There we go. If you look, it's all bundled up right here. Let me undo this real quick, show you. And I'll get that in a minute. That's all excess stuff. How much is bundled up underneath there. And that's on both sides. I'll come around and show y'all the other side. Just because I feel like it. And I tell you, with each load I do, I get better and better and better. Oh, look at them nice shiny rims right there. I'm sorry, I'm proud of this trailer, y'all. It's a brand new trailer. But I want to pay attention, you know, there's bungees everywhere. And you see how filthy them tires are. That explains, you know, my hands here. Bungee top to bottom. Top to bottom. And I'm going to tell you, you got to put out on them things, get them stretched that far. And if you've never had one of them break on you while you pulling down really, really hard, make sure that it gets good and tight and stays. Excuse that sloppiness. The flap's kind of off center. These were some patched up tarps they got redone. That's just that simple, folks. Now, if I would have had two tarps, that same flap right there would be on the back side, and the two ends, like what you've seen on the back side, would meet up in the middle right here. And you've seen how much thickness of a bundle that's underneath here rolled up already. Now imagine two of them that you got to roll up together. Folks,
and welcome back. We are now in the kitchen. So what we're going to start out with doing is we're going to wash our hands. You know, please wash your hands before you cook. You know, it's one of those sanitary kind of things. So wash your hands for about a minute, maybe 30 seconds, and get them nice and clean, especially if you've smoked. Because I cannot tell you that customers and family members probably do not appreciate the smoke smell on the food. So, with all the ingredients you do need, you are going to need a pound of Monterey Jack. You are going to need a pound of Moonster. And then also some white cheddar cheese. Next thing you guys are going to need is a pound of Italian sausage, as well as a pound of ground beef. You can use any sort of ground beef, whether it be lean, whatever. You know, I normally go for the 73% lean with the 20% fat. So we are going to get our pan out. What we're doing right now is we are getting our ground meat and our Italian sausage cooked. So we're going to go ahead and do that. What you're going to want to do is you are going to go ahead and chop that up in the pan while it's going, and you are going to cook it thoroughly. So normally for me, I do like my ground meat a little bit crispy, but because it is, you know, going to be thrown in the oven, we are going to cook it to temp, but we don't want it crispy, if that makes sense. So now we're going to let that start to cook, and we're going to come over here and dive into the cheese portion. So the ingredients you are going to need is, like I stated, you're going to need a pound of Munster, a pound of Monterey Jack, and a pound of sharp white cheddar. You are also going to need breadcrumbs. You are also going to need eggs, between 4 and 6 eggs for the whole meal. We are going to need some red sauce. I typically go with Prego. Has a little bit more flavor to it. You are going to need to get the biggest jar that they have, and as well as manicotti noodles. So what we're going to do next is we are going to get the noodles going just a little bit. You are going to cook them. You can put salt in the water. Do not put oil in it like you would with spaghetti noodles or anything like that, because it takes away, it'll coat the noodles with, you know, the oil, and it will make it to where it doesn't absorb the sauce and the flavor into the noodle. So you are going to cook it to where it's still a little bit crunchy. In the kitchen terms, that's called al dente. A little bit crunchy. So you don't want it fully cooked, because then the noodles will break apart if it is. So what we're going to do next is we are going to get the water to boil here. You know, and you guys are also going to want Parmesan cheese as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So what we're gonna do, you are gonna get your grater, whether it be food processor grater, hand grater, whatever. You are going to grade the 1 pound of Monterey Jack. Sorry about that. I almost dropped my knife. So, we are going to be right back. Alright folks, so once you have all of your cheese in the bowl like so, all 3 kinds of cheese, you can really use any sort of cheese that you want. We are going to take 325 milliliters of breadcrumbs and mix it in there. We're going to start with 1 for now. So we are going to take our eggs and we are going to crack them into the bowl. Alright folks, so once you have that cheese mixture in there, you are going to add 325 milliliters of breadcrumbs on top of that, and then take your 4 to 6 eggs and put them in there as well. It's just to get the mixture nice and, you know, firmly to be able to stuff the manicotti. Alright, and then you are going to mix that cheese with the breadcrumbs. So, if you get a consistency, you definitely want the mixture to be well coated. You are going to go ahead and add 175 milliliters of breadcrumbs just a little bit more. To where it is thoroughly coated. So here, now you do want the mixture looking like this, to where it is coated. That way, once the manicotti is al dente or still crunchy, you can stuff it and fill it. So, now that we have all of that done, we are going to head back to our meats. So, with the sausage and the hamburger mixed together in one pan, you do want it fully cooked. So, it's gonna look a little like that. So, don't add any seasonings, don't do anything like that. You know, there's gonna be enough seasonings with the mixtures all together. So, we are going to turn off our stove and we are going to drain the meat. Once your meat is drained, what we are going to do is we are going to mix it with the sauce. This is going to provide a base layer underneath the noodles. So, get yourself a spatula or anything you like. Once that meat is drained of all the oil, and you are going to mix in the meat and the pasta sauce. So, once that is mixed in, it's going to look like this, and you're going to want that to, start to bubble a little bit to where it, has some heat to it. When you're cooking your pasta, you're going to want to bring your water to a boil, obviously. Once it does get in there, you are going to want to get some manicotti noodles in there. This is the part that is most important. You are going to pretty much stand by your pot. You're going to want to make sure it doesn't cook all the way. So I would suggest starting out with probably about 5 minutes worth of cooking on a medium heat. Obviously keep an eye on it. Keep tongs, keep, your noodle thing, but you don't want them. I definitely recommend making extra because you are going to have some breakage in there and you cannot use those noodles. So once you are done cooking the noodles, you are definitely going to want the noodles to have a little bit of firmness to them, but not to where they're and stuff. So, and again, please don't add oil to them because that is going to ruin the idea. All right, guys. So once you get done with the noodles, you obviously have your sauce mixture still on low on the stove. So what you are going to do is you are going to get some sort of ladle and you are going to lightly coat the bottom of the pan like so. you are going to have some sauce and stuff left over. So what we are going to do is we are going to take our hot pan and we are going to set it down. And you're going to bring over the noodles. All right, so what we are going to do next is we are going to stuff the manicotti noodles. This definitely takes probably a couple hours to do, so you are, well, not the stuffing, but the whole entire meal. So we are going to stuff the manicotti noodles. All right, so when you get done, you're gonna want it filled, and then you are going to set them in the tray horizontally. And you're just going to keep repeating that process. All right, guys. So what we're going to do in the while we do that, we're going to set our oven for 350. We're going to let that preheat, and then we're going to continue stuffing our manicotti shells. All right, folks. So when you're stuffing your manicotti shells, the reason I say to make extra is you are going to have shells that come out with tears in them. You cannot use those. It makes it extremely difficult to stuff, and they will break apart. So we are now on our very, very last noodle here. As you can see, we are stuffing it. So, you know, you can use any type of cheese you want. I typically go for Munster, mozzarella, Swiss, and then added a little bit of Parmesan to that mix. So you obviously are gonna have extra. I definitely recommend freezing it. All right, so what we're gonna do next is we are gonna take the rest of our meat sauce and try your best to cover it. If you still have a little bit of the sauce left over, go ahead and just sprinkle some of that on top, like so. You want to make sure it's kind of evened out along the edge to where it covers the top of the manicotti. So you're going to have something that looks sort of like this. It is a red sauce base to where it is heavily red sauce. So what we're going to do next, we still have a little bit of leftover cheese. We are going to sprinkle that on top. All right. And then what I like to do is add just a little bit more Parmesan on top of that. All right. So we are going to put it in the oven, and this is what your product is going to look like before you put it into the oven. So what we are going to do next is we're going to take our manicotti and we're going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. So we will take a quick commercial break and we will be back. Alright folks, welcome back. Alright, so after 45 minutes of waiting, we do have the cooked manicotti. So, what we are going to do is it's going to be melted and bubbling around the edges, and it's going to look like that. It should be thoroughly done, but check it. So, I hope you all enjoyed today, and hope to see you all on the very next episode of Ivan Rage's Family Kitchen.
Because the king of Idgath has passed away, and the time of mourning has passed, and now it's time to choose a new champion and a new king. So all the houses from all the lands within Idgath have sent up their strongest and their bravest and their best to compete in a battle royale to the death to figure out who's going to be the next king of Idgath. If y'all excuse me for just a minute, gotta clean my brush. I'm sure that sounded lovely through my phone, but I'm working with what I got. Anyway, now that I've got a clean brush, I'm going to blend my cloud together. Idgath, its king, recently deceased. Now I'll blend it through, and you can barely see it other than that nice little cloud in the sky. Alrighty. I think I'm going to want water down here, so I'm going to go straight blue. There's still a little bit of that black in there. I'm going to start in the bottom here. Idgath had one major river running through it, and that would be the Bremen River. Which was said to have once housed mermaids, if you believe that. But that's a story for a different time. And we got some water set out. Gonna blend that together. All right. I think we need a mountain. In fact, there are the Urgle Mountains that border the Kingdom of Idgath. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pick up this black and blue color. Again, I want it very dark. I'm going to build us a mountain. The Urgle Mountains rise high into the sky, bordering the southern edge of Idgath. They were once said to be impregnable, but one brave king finally found a path, but again, that's a tale for another time. For now, all we need know is the Urgle Mountains are a fixture in the land of Idgath. So where were we? The king had died in Idgaf. The period of mourning had passed. And now it was time to choose a new king. And all of the various houses and tribes had sent forth their very best. And they were your typical men of strength and honor. And they were very similar in their characteristics. You know, showing weakness or anything perceived as weakness was a cause for great dishonor. So when the time came for the tournament to begin, it would be, well, as you would expect, jockeying for position, trying to get an advantage against their opponent. And the battles raged on for hours until finally there was only 2 men left. One would have been the odds-on favorite, and a man of a smaller stature known as Roadside. Now, Roadside wasn't your typical, shall we say, candidate to be a barbarian king. Just a second, I need some more white. All right. Okay. Definitely not your first choice if you were to elect or choose a king for a barbarian nation. All right. Okay, there we go. That's better. Yeah. Snow-covered peaks. A little bit darker right in here. Okay, there we go. All right. In the Irgle Mountains, there is a very important, famous watchtower that's guarded the borders of Idgaf for centuries. And that's where they light the signal fires in times of war or great need. And that sits right here on the peak. This lonely watchtower, just sitting up here. Up under the clouds. Yep. Okay, let's see here. The Tower of Ungol. All right. Now, the Tower of Ungol is prominently displayed. I think he needs some layers. There we go. In fact, you know what? We need a fire up in here. This is a watchtower. Maybe this is during a time of great need in Idgaf. Well, I guess it would be. The king has died. So the Urgle Mountains and the tower standing there majestically. There we go. All right. All right. Now, we want to clean our brush once again. So the final two combatants, Rookard and Beartooth, they've been fighting for hours. They were both the two last man standing in the battle royale to choose a king. And Rookard was not your typical barbarian. Watch the rattling while I clean my brush. So, he wasn't one to just rush in and attack in a wild rage. He liked strategy. He liked to play the long game. He waited for his moment, waited for his opportunity. And in doing so, he let his opponent tire himself out. I think now the Urgle Mountains, they kind of lead down into the Valley of the Centaurs. And it's a very wooded area. So I think I'm going to go for some big row of trees up in here. Get a little bit more green. Now, Rookard waited for his opportunity, waited for his opponent to tire himself out, and that's when he struck, defeating his opponent and becoming the next king of Idgaf. See, there was a problem though. Because he had won in what to a barbarian's eyes was dishonorably, he was branded as a coward. But that didn't last for too long when the people realized that Rookard wasn't going to be their typical kind of king. Yes, he was a mighty warrior, but he was also cautious. And he was also forward-looking. So he had an eye towards the future, and he wanted to make Idgaf a prosperous kingdom. I think I'm going to come in here now and maybe add some highlight. Maybe get just a touch. Of the paint thinner. Let's add some highlights to this. There we go. Just some splashes of color. Might even go over here and pick up a little bit of the red. Yeah, there we go. Just some splashes of color in there to give it some depth. There we go. I think there. There's forests of centaurs at the base of the Urgle Mountains. There's the watchtower underneath that dark, dark sky. All right. So King Idgaf, King Rookard of Idgaf, At first, they called him Rookard the Coward because he had won his kingdom and his throne through what they would deem to be dubious circumstances. But he very quickly proved to them that killing first and asking questions later is not always the best way of doing things. So he ushered in a very prosperous time and eventually became very well beloved. I think I'm going to add some ground into here. Let's get it right in here just a little bit. Maybe there's some dirt up in here. And I think, yeah. I'm not going to clean the brush. I'm just going to take and bring down. Now I'm going to clean the brush. We'll see what's going to happen there in just a second. But and my battery's about to die, so let me hook up the plug. Now that I started, I can't really stop, I guess. Alright, there we go. So, King Rookard ushered in an age of prosperity. He quickly proved that he had Idgaf's best interests at heart. He ushered in sweeping economic changes, opened up trade centers with the various peoples of the world, and was just generally received as a good guy. But he never lost that moniker, that Rookard the Coward. But don't ever badmouth an Idgafian about their king to their face. They love their monarch because he's a just man, he's a fair man, and he's wise. And that's why he's not your typical barbarian king. Alright, I had to clean my brush. Now, come in here, blend that away, and that becomes a reflection. Now I'm going to cut in a shoreline, I think. One good long one. Come in here and just maybe give the water some shimmer. Maybe there's some more waves in there. All right. And that's the story of King Rookard the Coward of Idgaf. But we also met the centaurs, and there's some interesting legends behind them. No one's quite sure where the centaurs came from, but what is known is that they're a fiercely xenophobic people. They prefer to stay with them for themselves, and they seek out the wildest parts of the world And every once in a while, you hear tales of rogue centaurs having dealings with the wider world. Which that makes for an interesting story. Point in case, King Rookard, as mentioned before, was one of the first humans to have any kind of dealings with the centaurs. And he ended up brokering a trade deal with them for goods and services. Okay, I need some white. Alright, come in here. Green and white. Maybe even add some red and some yellow to that. Alright, okay. Load that brush up with all the colors. There we go. Alright. I think now I'm gonna come in here and maybe add some just different grassy things. And even here a little bit. Add some depth to the stuff. Now, I think we're going to try something a little different. Alright, mix up with them. I think we're going to have, you know what's coming, going to have great big tree. A little bit of black. Alright. Gonna have a great big old tree right here in the middle of the thing. Alright, now we're committed to it. Now we're gonna try the dreaded zigzag tree. This lone pine tree amongst a forest of maples, sitting on this lone island, on this lone lake at the foot of the Urgle Mountains, where the centaurs and King Idgath live together in relative harmony. And that's what you can do when you paint. You can build your own world. You can build your own lore. You know, as I explained in the introduction, you know, this is the only way I'll ever get my stories out. Because I don't have the patience to write a novel. So we're going to try to do it this way. And who knows? Maybe we're onto something. I know I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you all are. I know my fingers are getting all sorts of painted. And, alright. Let's add a bit of yellow to that. A good Let's finish this tree out. Give us a nice bright color. Okay, there we go. Nope. Nope. Not quite bright enough. There we go. Almost finished, y'all. Almost finished. This has been an absolute pleasure. There we go. That's nice and bright. There it is. That's what I was looking for. Let's come in here. Maybe add some more color. And with that, I hope you all have enjoyed yourself. Come in here. Maybe do a few sticks and twigs in here. Random. I think we can call this one ready. And on that note, we will sign it. And I believe we can call this painting finished. It's been a pleasure, folks. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I did. And I hope I'll see you all soon in the next one. This has been Painting the Story. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed taking a trip to the kingdom of Iggath with me. If you'd like to see more of this, let us know. If you think this is boring, let us know. I'd like to get y'all's input or ideas for future stories or maybe future paintings. I'd also like to give this painting we just did away as a prize. You will have the first ever painting done by myself on an episode of Painting the Story. Anyway, folks, this has been a lot of fun, and until next time, I am the storyteller, and this has been Painting the Story.